Okay, so we've been doing Ayurvedic nutrition for a while, and I'm very impressed with the quizzes. They are a little hard. We are kind of taking you straight to a deep end, and beautiful work on all the my plates. Considering that you just started October 1st, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. So I'm very, very impressed. I think this is one of the best groups on the top groups we've ever had. So it also fires all the teachers up. We have done in the last couple of weeks, we have done Ayurvedic kitchen spices, Ayurvedic fruits. We've talked about, different diets and tastes, the shadarasas. We've talked about proteins. So today we are going to move on. Although Ayurvedic textbooks, they do talk about meat. They talk about animal-based protein. We are a Vedic college. We do not advocate. We consider there's such a karmic influence by eating these things, even though Ayurveda allows that. But it also says you can eat it. There's no harm in it. But you will also have to suffer the karmic consequence that goes along with it. So this is why we do not teach anything about those things. Our focus is always about the plant-based. So we will today talk about vegetables and grains. I don't know if I'd be able to finish all the oils. This is a huge presentation, but I'm going to try my best. All right. If you have clients like I have clients, usually they know what cruciferous pungent nightshades is, because I get the kind of clients who already, they're kind of aware of their health. That's why they're seeking out an Ayurveda practitioners. They're eating all kind of greens and leafy and kale and whatnot. And then you get the other kind of client, there's a client, they'll drag their husband or partner or sister or friend, whosoever, or, they recommend it to someone, why don't you try it? Or somebody who just are teenagers. They don't even know, they know what okra is or what spinach is. They won't even know what half the vegetables are. So knowing what the vegetables are, and especially from a perspective of Shadras, from perspective of the six rasas, because when we are going to create an Ayurvedic my plate or give suggestions to the client, these are the vegetables you need to eat. So right on the top of your head, you can put it in the chat window, all the root vegetables, do you think they would be good for Vata, Pitta, or Kapha? Root vegetables are the actual root portion of a vegetable. I'm just going to make a little drawing here. So you have the stem, you have the branches. Sorry about the drawing here. And you have the leaves and the fruit. And then, of course, you have the roots of a plant. I mean, I kind of made it like a tree, but this is supposed to be a plant. Root, stem, branches, leaves, and then, of course, there's fruits. Let's pretend they're fruits of vegetables. Let's see. Vata. Yes, yes. So anything that comes from the ground, and this is not a general rule that every single thing, for example, ginger is a root, but ginger is pungent and it's better for kapha than for vata. If vata is going to have ginger, it has to be, sweetened, and it has to be diluted, even though it's a root vegetable. Turmeric is also a root. Believe it or not, it's a root. And it is also from the ginger family. But overall, if you look at most of the root vegetables, and I'm talking about things like carrot, you have your carrots, you have your not parsnips, but things even that vegetables. Does anybody have a garden? You have vegetables that kind of grow really, really near the earth. For example, pumpkin and squashes, they're literally touching earth. They barely are like 5-10 inches off the ground, so they're almost touching the ground. So I would consider them as part of earthy vegetables too. So all squashes, pumpkin, um, parsnips, carrots, root vegetable, turnips, all of that is very vata pacifying, usually will increase kapha, with the exception of things like ginger and ginger flower. Because why? Because most of these root vegetables are actually quite sweet. Let me just kind of write that down. Because of their sweet, I'm trying to give you like a formula here. So the root vegetables are sweet in taste. And because of that sweet taste, they're great for vata. And think of it as, think the root vegetables or those vegetables that grow close to the earth have energy of the soil, have energy of Mother Earth. They have more gravity. So they have more gravitas. And you want to balance that vata energy. And not just in a vata person, all of us, it, irrespective of what our dosha is, our vata is the first dosha to get out of balance. For example, this season fall, have you noticed the skin starts becoming dry? It doesn't matter what dosha you are. Even people who have oily skin starts becoming super dry, especially you're not used to putting the heat on, and suddenly you start putting the heat on, and it starts drying all that moisture out of your body. And then you want to ground yourself, and you suddenly feel, oh my God, what's happening? So you want to have root vegetables at that time. The exception is when you're not going to have, if you have let's say, a pitta imbalance going on right now. So I'm talking, so in AC 102, and this is answering your question, Ashley, it's a little hard making. So who are you making these my plate or plans for? Are you going to make it for someone who's just had a baby, someone who is just out of surgery, someone who has diabetes? Absolutely not. You're not making a plan for them. In this program, you're making a plan for someone who has a mild dosha imbalance or a mild Agni imbalance. That is pretty much, and we also go a little bit into a few other things, but our focus is Agni disorders. And Dr. Priyanka is going to do a class where we talk about indigestion and irritable bowel syndrome. We talk about mild gluten intolerance, not celiac, mild gluten intolerance. We'll talk about acid reflux. We will talk about flatulence. We're going to talk a lot about gas, so can't be embarrassed. Um, so all of these things are related to Agni and dosha, and how we are cooking our foods and what vegetables we are eating is important. So even though everybody should have a root vegetable, obviously a vata should favor it. But when you are making, so you're basically making for generally a well person. So when you're making generally a well person, your consideration is always the rasa, always the taste. When you start AC 107 sometime in 4 or 5 months from now or 6 months from now, which is the Ayurvedic nutrition for unwell people, where you're actually looking at, oh my God, this person has high triglycerides, or this person has high LDL or HDL, and they are on these medication, and they're already going to a registered dietitian. And as an Ayurveda counselor, you're not supposed to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. What are you going to do? We are just going to talk about vegetables and plants. Does it make sense? So that time, that becomes really, really important. So you should know your vegetables and fruit inside out, outside in, backwards in. Where do they grow from? Go to the grocery section. Even if you have never cooked a few things before, go do it. It's fun. In America and in the West, leafy greens are so popular. Everybody knows them. But there's a lot of what that people don't know about. So leafy greens. So there's two consideration: raw and cooked. So let me ask you, the the taste of leafy greens when it's raw versus it's cooked, mostly leafy greens, the taste is, either sweet, bitter, sweet, astringent, but mostly it is air and space element. I'm going to just write there, earth element. And this is air and space element. So leafy greens are air and space element when they're raw. But when they're cooked, you're removing the air and space element and you're adding the fire element. So first tell me leafy greens for leafy greens that are raw. Who do you think they'd be good for compared to leafy greens that are cooked? Let's see. So, kapha, pitta, which one are you talking about? I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Leafy greens raw would be good for who? Kapha. Oh, I understand what you're saying. And leafy greens raw are not good for who? Yes, Morgan, that's correct. So I got that. Now, so who needs to avoid leafy greens? Raw. Yes. Well, good luck convincing a Vata person not to have salads. They love it. Wait, it's okay to have a little bit in the summer. But when there's that gas going on and Vata, then just for a few days avoid it. Yeah, it's like telling a kapha person like me, oh, you cannot have, anything sweet. It's like saying, don't live. You cannot have a life. So it's kind of hard. Um, okay, that's great. So the idea is, greens are good for every single human being. And why is it that it doesn't mean you tell your Vata client or someone with a Vata disorder, stop eating leafy greens. Just tell them steam it. For example, you could steam kale or mustard greens. By the way, mustard greens is pungent. It's the taste. Kale is bitter and it's pungent. Think about it. And spinach is also considered bitter. These are bitter, pungent. So even from the taste perspective, because of that air and space element, kale is air and space element, spinach is air and space element, mustard greens are air and space and fire element. So from all perspectives, not so good for Vata. Let's see what's happening in the chat. Yeah, it's really, really hard. It's vegetables. So I'm just giving you an example. You could steam the kale and add like a sesame dressing. Example, you could do a tahini. You could do, what is it called? It's a Japanese thing. Does anybody know it's a Japanese salt? It's made of sesame seed and it's 16 part sesame seed and like 1 part salt or something. I totally believe it came from India and went to Japan. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Do you like Japanese food? Gamisho or something like that? Well, I don't think this is the right spelling, but it's something like gamisho. It's a sesame salt or just a sesame salad dressing. Does anybody know how to make a sesame salad dressing? I have learned to make this because all my Vata clients refuse to give up salad. So I tell them, okay, you can have cilantro and baby kale, but steam it for 2 minutes and then add a sesame or ghee dressing. I'm writing too much here. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Let me put in a whiteboard. So Vata pacifying dressing, you can do sesame seeds crushed. You can do ghee, or you can do sesame oil. You can do a little bit of hingu or asafoetida. Has anybody been checking, except for, I know that Stephanie, I don't know if you're here, you've been checking all the stuff I've been making. Every day I've been making ojas, increasing crazy sweets and putting them on the Instagram. Yeah, that's what I need to do, right? Make all these sweets. Um, so thank you, Stephanie, for all your comments. Sesame seeds, ghee, hingu, and that's pretty much it. And you could actually add roasted cumin too. So, when you get that client who does not want to give up, I hate telling people don't give up, because if I go to an Ayurvedic practitioner and they tell me, give this up, give that up, I'm never going back. It's so hard to give. I mean, unless it's so bad for me that it's causing, a problem. So the way I like to, this is just my personal counseling technique, is, the food needs to give happiness to people. You can't just take it away, but you can suggesting an option. So instead of, they want to have salads, they want to have raw green leafy things, steam it, blanch it. Does anybody know what blanching means versus steaming? So basically steam, you put in a container where the steam's coming out, and then the hot steam, the gaseous portion of the hot water, the moisture is cooking. In blanching, for example, one of the things that's blanched is beans. Green beans is blanched here a lot. For holiday cooking, they will blanch. So they will take a little bit of green beans and they will put in hot boiling water for about 60 seconds or maybe less than 60 seconds, and then they take it off. So only the kind of outer part of the green beans get moistened and softened, and the inner part, it's kind of crunchy. Now, it's called al dente. And even pasta, they do the al dente, right? And if you go order vegetables from, roasted vegetables from a lot of Western restaurants, everything is al dente. You know what I'm saying, al dente? You should be able to, when the texture is not soft, it's kind of crunchy. You know what I'm talking about? Let me ask you, what do you think Ayurveda thinks about this al dente? You know what's coming. You know what's coming. You think Ayurveda approves? So you can get broccoli, you can get bok choy, not bok choy is actually usually soft, and cauliflower. These things are also, I think the spelling of al dente is wrong. I think it's D-E-N-T-E, I don't know. Anyway, you get the idea. So you don't blanch these things. A lot of people will blanch it or steam it and then quickly saute it with a little bit of oil. Ayurveda does not. These things, beans, broccoli, cauliflower, are hard vegetables. And they are really hard for kidneys to process. In fact, I had a client who was a pure pitta, had kidney issues in the past, and she became a raw foodist. And it actually happened to a male client as well. And no, the story with this guy was in Hollywood, and he was a Vata, and he knew a lot about Ayurveda, and he actually had a good diet. And then suddenly he went on a raw food retreat that his girlfriend had booked for 3 weeks, and he came back with kidney stones. And then, of course, he passed those kidney stones and everything. Then he came to me, and I'm like, what were you eating? He's like, we were having green beans and broccoli and cauliflower. I'm like, you were having it raw? They're like, yeah, then we were having it's kind of heated 215. These things are so hard for the body to digest. It's almost, if there is any vegetable that's hardest to digest, it's these cruciferous vegetables. I mean, if someone's having a carrot or, green leafy vegetables, if you're a Vata person, Pitta, even Kapha, you can totally get away with having, a celery, or you can get away with having a carrot, especially if you're Kapha Pitta. But no dosha can get away with having, uncooked green beans, broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, what do they call it? Brussels sprouts. So this concept of al dente in these vegetables is a no. Uh-oh. Absolutely not. So they have to be soft in texture. Does it make sense? Other stuff, like if it's a pitta or a kapha person, carrots and other vegetables is fine. But everything is, especially these things. All right, let's go back to our thingy. All right. So we've already talked about root vegetables. Some example of root vegetables are just to, carrots, parsnips, turnips, potatoes. Is there anybody who hates all these vegetables? I don't know why. I've had so many people, they just hate root vegetables. I love these live stuff, even though I'm a kapha. Oh, good. Nobody hates them. Yeah, I know. They're just beautiful. They're beautiful and they're comfort food. And I have a client who just had a baby a few weeks ago, and like she had the baby one day, and then her husband texted me she refused to eat anything from the hospital. And the next day, like less than 24 hours after she gave birth, she called me, please send me a soup. So we made her a soup with carrots and parsnips and turnips, and no potatoes though. And we put all these fenugreek for increasing lactation. We put ajwain. Let me write that down if you remember that. Ajwain, spice, cumin, lots and lots of ghee, and we made sure it was completely mashed up. And we gave that with just so the base of my soup for her was a little bit of yellow mung dal. So yellow mung dal was the base, and we added all of this, and we made this big thing, and then apparently everybody loved it. Everybody was eating her soup, and yeah, that's what we gave her. The idea is, and it was not just soft. There was no crunchiness, whatever. That why for a person, even why for a person who's just had surgery, she had a C-section, we are doing this because the agni is finished. There is no agni. Body is in shock. There is no agni, body is in shock. So what do? You want to save body the energy of breaking down your food. So you're already giving food that's completely broken down. It's completely mashed up, almost like baby food. The only difference that we added fenugreek and ajwain, turmeric, things that are, I mean, if you take the fenugreek, ajwain, and turmeric out, it could have been given to a baby. And I say baby, I mean baby who can eat grains. I mean that's the kind of soup we're talking about. Even everybody's heard of khichdi. It's so famous, but the khichdi for someone who's unwell is a soup. So it's 1 part rice, 2 parts dal, and like lots of this, and you shouldn't be able to make 2 gallons at one time. Oh my God. Am I making everybody hungry? Yeah, but you should do this. So one of the things, and if anybody wants to do this, they should. So I used to do this workshop back in San Diego when I was in San Diego. I haven't done it since I moved to Austin. I'm going to do it this year. Is I used to have a holiday cooking workshop. So I would take the holiday things that people make on holidays, like the bread stuffing people make, right? The bread stuffing. I would make the bread stuffing with the base would be, what is that? That's Ezekiel bread, the sprouted Ezekiel bread. That would be the base. And then everything would be, I would use a organic vegetable stock instead of butter, ghee, and all these herbs. So basically, the moral of the story was we just added herbs. And ajwain tastes exactly like oregano. And then people are like, oh my God, what is that? And even soups. I mean, fall, Thanksgiving, why not a khichdi soup with all these veggies and, all those spices? Just add a little bit more. Why not make it into a holiday? Why does the holiday season have to be about unhealthy cooking? I mean, they can be unhealthy cooking, but they can also be some healthy stuff. The idea is this is earth element, so it's very grounding. It has gravity, it has gravitas, it is nourishing, and nourishing not only for a vata person, just this root vegetable, just for this season, the fall, and also for vata imbalances, it's one of the best thing to do. And of course it does increase kapha. So if I know there's kaphas out there, like the people like me have to go easy on this stuff. So uh, one of the things you could do is you could do a mixture of a lot of vegetables. For example, a lot of leafy greens or broccoli or mustard greens, and just smaller amounts of carrots or potatoes, or yeah, a really small amount of potatoes. So think of these root vegetables are tonifying. So in Ayurveda, there is two things. Everything has two functions in the diet. So let's go back to, let me save this. So the first principle, what is the first principle of creating an Ayurvedic uh, Ahara diet plan? What is the first principle? It is Shadarasa, right? We already know this. For a Vata person, it's sweet, sour, and salty. For a Pitta person, it's Bas, bitter, astringent, sweet. For a Kapha person, it is Bap, bitter, astringent, pungent. Sorry, these are all Ayurvedic jargons that we guys use. Kapha is Bap, Pitta is Bas, and Vata is snake. Easy to remember. So you have this 6 rasas. That was the first principle. That we've been talking about it. You were already applying it. I'm seeing amazing, really good quiz results, really good. So you guys are already getting it. The second principle in every food, and this will also apply in therapies, this will also apply in lifestyle interventions, this will also apply in daily routine, and this will definitely apply in giving out herbs, is effect, which I'm not going to say what it is. One is called Langhana, one is called Brahmana. Sanskrit name, don't fret about it. Reduce, increase. Okay, so Langhana mean, and everything that you eat either reduces or detox. That means anything that reduces or detox is usually a kapha or a kapha pitta pacifying. Anything that increases or tonifies, whether it's a fruit, vegetable, grain, is increasing kapha. Increases kapha and decreases. Doesn't make sense? This is your second principle. What was the first? We've been doing this. So root vegetables are tonifying, increasing. Let me give you an example. Watermelon. Would watermelon reduce, detox, or tonify? It's a trick question. Watermelon? Would watermelon is sweet, we know that, but would it reduce or increase? All right. Watermelon would increase. It would totally increase. Its effect is increase and tonify. Do you know why? Because watermelon is sweet taste. Think of the taste. Watermelon is literally, it's 85% water and the rest is sugar. It's literally just water plus sugar. If I was to ask you give water and sugar to someone, you would say that would increase kapha, right? Wouldn't you say that? So watermelon, think of mango. It is a lot of fiber, it has a lot of nutrition content, and it is very sweet. Definitely kapha and pitta. It'll help pitta, it'll help vata, but it'll increase kapha. Pineapple, same thing. How about pomegranate? Is it tonifying or increasing or reducing? You're doing great. I mean, I don't want to be a talking head. I don't want to talk at you without you knowing if you're getting it. I really want you to understand these principles that we apply in creating the diet plan. So I'm just off the script just for a little while. Yes, you got it. Megan got it. Oh yeah, it's totally reducing because it's astringent. So herein, don't think dosha. When you're the first principle, think dosha. Vata is sweet, sour, salty. Pitta is bitter, astringent, and sweet. Kapha is bitter, astringent, pungent. When you think of second, only think taste. If it is sweet, it is always tonifying. If it is astringent, it is always, not actually always, there are many food items that are exceptions, but as a general rule, you can say that it's detoxifying or reducing. So one of the things that pomegranate does is it absorbs excess water from the colon, and helps with diarrhea. So it brings that, or it binds the stool. And same with the raw banana or green banana or plantains. This is a concept that you do more in the advanced Ayurvedic nutrition, but I just want to give you an idea. At this point, we don't even go deeply into this effect. But when you start working with people, for example, when we are making a diet plan for someone who has, let's say, it's a kapha person or kapha vata person or someone, or kapha pitta person, they're older, they have adult onset diabetes, it's completely managed, they've lost weight. So, you don't want to put them on a kapha pacifying diet. You don't want their blood sugar to reduce further. At that time, instead of using the rasas, we use this principle more, and this principle gains more importance, and also virya and energetics gain more importance. The Shad Rasa or 6 rasas is more important for making a plan for generally a well person with mild disorder. Does that make sense? And the second principle is taken into effect. The third principle is, of course, the energetics. And again, energetics we do in AC 107 in detail. We also do them in Ayurvedic herbs. You will have them on your fingertips by the time you're finished with this program. Sanskrit words. Virya is potency, heating or cooling. Vipak is aftertaste. Karma, you know what karma is? Guna is quality. Prabhav is ultimate effect. So energetics is become number one when you energetics and effect become number one when you're creating for persons who are not well, and rasas take a backseat. When you're creating for a well person, which is what we are trying to do in this course, which is AC 102, then rasas is all that we care about. Do you want me to save this for you? Should I save it? And yeah. Okay, saving it. All right. Okay, so we have done that root vegetables are tonics, they will increase kapha, and they also build and nourish dhatus. Anything that increases the tissue in the body is a tonic. So this is why pomegranate or let's say turmeric actually scrapes ama off your tissues. So it's decreasing. Ginger is langana, decreasing. Um, the only sweet thing that I can think of, which is an exception, is honey. Honey is decreasing. It's an expectorant, right? When you have phlegm, it decreases it. This is an exception. Otherwise, anything that is sweet or root is usually increasing. And the general rule of thumb is root is going to increase kapha. Yes, I kind of already, so, you know, vata, you would use ghee. Let me just, I mean, this is something I don't really, what I want you to do is just print it out and use it as a guide. This is just like a recipe. Honestly, you want to do not want to give root vegetables to a kapha at all if they're unwell. Just don't give it to them. But if it's uh, you know, a kapha person with a vata disorder or a, you know, very heavy duty vata disorder, then you can give a very, very small amount. Then you give small amount of root vegetables with very, very pungent, make it spicy, you know, bring in the habanero. Any kaphas here? Does anybody, what is that? Uh, has anybody had habanero? Oh no, there's this, um, you know, bring in the ghost pepper if you have to, but really cayenne pepper, I would definitely add cayenne pepper here. So you can get pipali or long pepper from an Indian store, and the combination, this is like going to, your tongue's going to be on fire with this combination. But for kapha person, yeah, for kapha person, it's pretty good. So adding very small amount of this kind of thing for a kapha person would be good. So one of the assignments that you had, not everybody has submitted, is um, I think it's due on November 14th. Create a soup or chutney for yourself, right? Create a super chutney for yourself, and also make for your vikriti, not your prakriti, and also make a churnam mix. So this mixture of spices specifically for vata pitta kapha is called a churnam. It's a churnam. So make a churnam first, which is specific for your vikriti, and then use it in cooking a soup or a chutney. That was the assignment. So you can use this slideshow as well. It, if you have a person who is a combination of vata kapha, then you would do a vata spices and a little amount of kapha spices. Very simple. You will use both. So if it's a vata kapha person, they both need to be warmed up. They do need that heat, but except you don't want to give them extreme amounts of cayenne pepper or pipali. You just want to kind of do moderately spicy. Does it make sense? So we've talked about leafy greens. I told you that most of the leafy greens are actually broccoli. You have cruciferous veggies, you have leafy greens. Most of them are astringent and bitter. Astringent and bitter is made of that air and space element, so not so great for vata. But you know, everybody needs, even vatas need leafy greens and cruciferous veggies. We all need it. So amount, like if you had a my plate, the amount of leafy green and cruciferous you would give to a vata imbalance compared to a kapha imbalance. So if you have, let me just make a little. So if you have a vata person, you would, so this is how much their root vegetables would be. And this is how much their cruciferous and leafy green would be. Does it make sense? This is if they're unwell. Obviously, this can be more if they're better. So for mild disorders, you want to make sure that leafy green or cruciferous is a slightly smaller amount. If you want to give more than that amount, maybe you could give this much, but then it should be laden with ghee and so on. So they do need it in their plate. It's just how you're doing it. Obviously, for a pitta person, it's the for pitta kapha person, you would give both leafy greens and cruciferous, lots of them. And for kapha person, this is how much the vegetables should be. And this is their carbohydrate. And this is their protein. So 75% of a kapha plate should be, vegetables. Then you have 20% protein and 10% grains. But of course, being a kapha, we don't actually listen to that. But even if a kapha could do this for a few days, that, or even a week, that does bring them back into balance. So amount we are eating, how much we are eating, what we are adding is kind of important. Let's see the chat. Yes. So Morgan, who are you making? You always ask the question, who are you making for? You're making for a person who's well, there's nothing wrong with them, then, go on, give a bigger portion. But if that vata person has indigestion or constipation or some kind of vata imbalance going on, then you want to reduce it. Does it make sense? Yeah, totally go for it. Just, the day that you feel that you're not feeling well, then that day reduce your Brussels sprouts or don't have them for dinner, just have them for lunch. Whenever there's a food that, you or your client does not want to have, does not want to give up, then just make sure they have it for lunch, because then it's easier to digest it. Dinner, cheating in dinner is not allowed, but cheating at lunch is totally allowed. Doesn't make sense? So just move it to the lunch. But also, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a well person. So we are trying to make the diet plan not for, so there's, let's go back. You have a diet plan for, a well person. You have a diet plan for mild disorders. And then you have a diet plan for unwell person. So like I said, when you're making for someone who has hypertension or hypotension or diabetes or some kind of chronic disorder, they're already going to the physician and they are on, probably on prescription drugs that you know nothing about. So don't touch them with a 10-foot sword, 10-foot pole. When I get people like that, I make them, sign big 5-page disclaimers, and I do work with them, but I ask them to, I need them to give, I need to know that their doctors or physicians are okay with that. But mostly I stay away from herbs, and I'll just talk about how the food is cooked. That's pretty much what I talk about with them. Unless the doctor is on board. If the physician is on board, we kind of work together. For a well person, all the 6 tastes are needed every day. Or at least every other day. And for mild disorders, portion size, you can remove the 3 tastes becomes dominant. Does it make sense? For a well person, all six tastes are needed. But of course, if it's a vata person, sweet, sour, salty is more important. Root vegetables are more important. If it's a kapha person, pungent, astringent, bitter is more important. But all the six are needed. For mild disorders, those three tastes become 75, 80% of the plate. When it's unwell, only three tastes, very strict diet. Does that make sense? Is that making sense? Whenever you have an imbalance, move to a cooked diet. If it's a well kapha person or a well pitta person, then they can get away with raw food. The minute they are not well, we switch to a cooked diet. Always when a person is not well, for 1 day or 2 day or 3 day or 5 days, however longer it takes them to kind of get back on track, is they will switch. Just to give you an example, I don't know how many of you are getting that cold front. We are getting this cold front. I mean, cold front for Texas, of course. So our temperature 4 days ago, the last class we did with you guys, it was 88 degrees. Today is 47 degrees. So in 3 days, there was a 30, 35 degree, actually almost 40-degree temperature drop. So, all these things start coming up. I see it in my family. I see it in people around us. I said at that time, you just want to have things like soups and warming foods, don't you? And suddenly the weather changes, right? Because you're kind of not well and you're trying to adjust. Similarly, when a person is unwell, they cannot taste anything. They just want to have, just for that 1 day or 2 day, just switch to cooked soups and very mild diet. Does it make sense? Okay, Mandy, you win. She's the winner, clear winner here. Okay. Yes. All right. Oh, I forgot to mention this. So the crucifers, so cleanses Rakta Dhatu. So, whatever we eat, the nutrition, the blood is pretty much, it's taking everything we have and it's distributing everything we have. So if we have any nonsense in our food, it ends up in our blood. So this is why we want to use turmeric for everything. We want to use leafy green vegetables because they naturally cleanse the blood. Because even if we were to have an amazing, awesome diet, just living in the homes that we do, and even if you use a nail polish, you inhale the fumes, it's ending up in your body. If you're using lipstick, if you're using a foundation or perfume, it seeps in through your skin, it's ending in your bloodstream. Even if you were to do nothing, you would still have toxins in your body. So adding leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, adding the astringent bitter rasa is so important because it is a natural cleanser of the blood. It helps, it helps cleanse. Also, these things helps the spleen to get rid of that excess, every 120 days getting rid of that RBC. So you need those things. So we cannot say this person should not eat it, that person. Everybody needs it, only the amount is different. Or if they're not feeling well for a few days, they should reduce it. Or if they're, if they've, like I said, for some people, I gave root vegetables. I also added, I think cruciferous vegetables for my postpartum friend and client. They're also anti-inflammatory. I mean, our entire existence in the modern world, unless you live out on a farm, everything is, causes inflammation. Our diet, I mean, pick up anything with, most of the processed food, and, you can't help but eat it. You go to a friend's house and they offer you something. You can't say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to have that. You just, just to be polite. So we are surrounded by that. And one of the things we could do is just eating a lot of cruciferous veggies in our diet is so important. It cleanses the liver, it cleanses the lymph, but it has to be cooked. It has to be cooked. Cruciferous vegetables should be cooked, even for pitta, kapha, vata, for every single human being. They should have it cooked. Very simple. Interestingly enough, when I came to this country, Atul took me to this restaurant and they had a salad called cruciferous veggie salad. I said, is this for real? And then we saw that, someone on another table had ordered this. They literally had raw bok choy, raw broccoli, and raw cauliflower salad. And I'm thinking, okay, I was worried, how will my practice take over in this country? Would I be able to make any money? What would I do? And I'm like, if they eat like this, I don't think I need to worry. I think I'm fine. Because it was just, an eye opener for me. And also another eye opener for me was the cold water with ice with every meal. So no wonder. And of course, Ayurveda believes every single disease is starting with the, internal disease starts with what's in your stomach, with your Agni. And of course, everybody knows about the anti-cancer properties of these vegetables. But like I said, if you're a Vata person and you're having, I mean, just to give you one example, maybe Andrea, that would make more sense. You know how they say fiber is great for you. And of course, all of us need, vegetable fiber and more fiber. And if you don't have enough fiber, you can be constipated. So I have known so many of my Vata clients who ended up taking too much fiber, and two of them ended up in an emergency, in urgent care, because they took all this fiber and they didn't have enough water in the body, and they didn't drink enough water, and it became like a hard solid lump somewhere in the colon, which had to be, it had to be like removed by a physician. It was crazy, because they do need the fiber, but they don't need, because in America it says, oh, I like turmeric, it's great for me, so I should have 7 tablets. Doesn't make sense. Everything has to be portion controlled in terms of herbs too. I hope that makes sense. I think it did make sense. I'm trying to give you a good, all right. Actually, I don't believe this. This was done by an Ayurvedic practitioner who was my student, who also happens to be a RD. Okay. Pungent vegetables. Oh, these are my favorite. So onions, cayenne pepper, red chili, radishes, horseradish. If you've been to a Japanese or a restaurant, it's called wasabi. All of that, it's extremely pungent. It's, fire to your tongue. And it has one quality. Is it reducing or increasing in terms of its quality? Brahman or Langana? What do you think? Is it tonifying or detoxifying or reducing? What do you think is the quality here? And the taste is usually always pungent, and sometimes it's bitter and pungent. What do you think it is? Yes, yes. It is, it literally, it's a kapha buster. If anybody has a kapha issue, they have congestion and phlegm and coughing, all this, white kapha phlegm. These things are good. I mean, have you ever tried to have a wasabi or a horseradish when you had a cold? It's a kapha buster. It'll clear. I mean, people have cayenne pepper detox fasts. Only thing is, all of these vegetables are super heating. So they should be avoided by a Vata and Pitta person. But let's say our Vata and Pitta person lives in Alaska or Montana, and it's like crazy cold over there, and they have a cold and they're not feeling well. They can have it in small amounts just to warm themselves up. In that like minus 35 or whatever the temperature goes up, goes down. So in those, freezing temperatures, even a Pitta and Vata person can totally in cold temperatures take it. But obviously in, more normal temperatures, oh yeah, yeah. Yes. Is it snowing? Okay. I take back what I said about the weather over here. It's like I'm complaining about 47. Okay. Try to avoid, so if I were to give this onion, cayenne pepper, red chili, radish, horseradish to a Vata or Pitta person, even in winter, I'm not just going to say have 2 spoons of wasabi. I'm going to add this to their soup. I'm going to add this to their dal or whatever food they're eating to reduce the pungency. However, yeah, that's how we're going to do it. Okay. Nightshades, you will hear us say a lot, talk about nightshades. There's three nightshades: tomatoes, eggplant, potatoes. They're all earth element, and they're actually usually okay. They're sour. For example, tomato is sour. It should be okay for a vata person, but if a vata person tends to have allergies or it's not in season, then you should consider it allergen. Doesn't make sense? Then it's any person who tends to have allergies, nightshades are not the best for them. Food allergies, not respiratory allergies. What about pitta with imbalance in kapha for pungent? Yes, Patricia, they can have pungent just in small amounts and cooked till the imbalance comes, but not so high. Even the reason I'm saying that is what happens in America the minute you find out, oh my God, that's good for me, and everybody kind of goes overboard. If a pitta person has a kapha imbalance, let's say, kapha's gone up, then small amounts is okay. Small amount being the operative word. And it should not be raw. It should be either cooked in the food in small amounts. Again, small amount being the operative word. Nightshade is anybody who has any kind of food allergy or anybody, I mean, forget the doshas, anybody with food allergies, and if they are not in season, and the reason for it, I mean, the number one here is tomatoes, because tomatoes, if they're not organic, they are usually harvested and picked months in advance, put in cold storage, and they're matured with ethylene gas, and they're full of nonsense. So even if, sour is supposed to be good for vata, but because the way those tomatoes have been treated, they're not good for vata. Doesn't make sense? But if it's summer and you're growing your own tomatoes, you're fine. But if you have someone who has allergies or tends to have allergies that flare up, for example, I get people who are pitta, or I get people who are vata pitta who have skin issues or skin allergies. I just tell them to avoid nightshades completely if they can. And I mean, I'm okay with them having it in season for a little while, but even though there is no direct correlation with it, but the idea is that these things affect the body more than other things. It is all tonifying, it all increases, excellent for anemic people, builds rasadhatu. Again, like I said, contradicted in any kind of food sensitivity, especially celiac IBS. Also contraindicated if someone tends to have ama, is getting over an infection or is having. So there's a general rule of thumb. If somebody is not well, do not give them these three items. Just that's it. If they're well, they're okay. Their digestion is good, no problem. Okay. Diuretics. Now, carrots and celery, even though they're root vegetables, they have a beautiful effect. They actually are diuretics. Celery, has natural salts in it. That's why it's so good for vata. So the funny thing is, even though it has salts in it, in small amount, it acts as a diuretic. That means it can be, it's good for people with hypertension. It's good for kaphas in small amounts. Also mustard greens, watercress, broccoli, fingerling, blue potatoes, meaning diuretics when they reduce excess water. Within carrots, when you give this carrots to a kapha person, there's these carrots that are not orange in color, but they're kind of purple in color. They're purple carrots. They're actually the best for kapha. So carrots is an exception to that root vegetable for a kapha person. It's still good for So carrots, you would always add ghee and some, you would make it, you would give an extra glass of water to a vata person if they're having carrots, because carrot will actually reduce the water in your body. I actually once did a carrot and beet fast. I'm not a juice, not juicing, but I actually did carrots, beets. I would, cook them and have them, and it, oh my God, so much. Because I tend to suffer from edema and water retention, and wow. And then I used watercress and everything, and it does get rid of the water. It's crazy. Yeah, the dragon carrots, the purple carrots, the dragon carrots. I actually make a fermented drink, almost like a kimchi kind of fermented drink with that. And it's a famous North Indian drink called, oh God, it's also called kanji. I'll show that to you once. It's like a fermented drink. You put it and you add lots of mustard seeds. You take those dragon carrots, you add mustard seeds, beets, and you ferment it for like 10 days. And it's Atul hates it. He calls it like, I don't even want to say the bad word he calls it, but suffice to say he hates it. I love it. And we make it in the winter, and it's so warming. And yeah, so we do these fermented drinks. I'll show you after the class. And so mustard greens, are used even in salad. Mustard greens are almost pungent, and they will also reduce excess water. Diuretic, anything that reduces excess water from the body should be good for kapha. Very simple. Have you seen those blue potatoes, fingerling and blue potatoes? Sometimes you get them at Costco. So only thing is you would do a really small amount of potatoes for kapha person. So when you give that carrot or celery, now carrot, remember carrot is sweet, celery salty, so that's actually good for vata, but it's good for vata, but it's reducing the water. So how do you make up for that? You give it in a soup form. So when you give in a soup form, they're getting that extra water. So if for every portion of carrot, celery that a vata person has, they should have half a cup of water, or they should just have it in a soup form, or they can have drinking warm. Also, it has a lot of fiber. Anything that has a lot of fiber, you want to add water anyway. Does it make sense? And this is just a list for you guys to download and print, and have it in your file or notebook or portfolio, or whatever you guys are using for learning. And so I don't want to go through this. And we are finished. This is something that we will do in the next class. So we have now done kitchen spices, we have done beverages and drinks, and we have done fruits. And I think, yeah, that grains is probably, yeah, food for children and nursing moms, and grains is the only one that's left, and the rest we're going to start talking about. We're going to be talking about disorders from the next class, I think. You're going to start talking about disorders and food planning. Any question? Any questions? No question? Okay, perfect. Laura, when you have time, please give me a call tomorrow, maybe, if that's okay. Oh, the posting, it's Instagram. You want to see? I can show you. Um, yeah, I didn't do it. I made some funny stuff today too. Let me find my Instagram. Uh, let's see. Here it is. Can you see it? Yeah, this is what this is what I made. It's like 10,000 calories. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to Steph about that. Yeah, made this. After that, I made 3 more things. I haven't posted them yet. Fall meal. And this is chocolate coconut vegan. I just went vegan 2.5 months ago. So I'm rediscovering things. And when I say vegan, I'm vegan, but I'm okay with ghee in small amounts. So it's kind of like 99% vegan. So I've had to go back and do, a lot of the things that I do. Uh, yeah. So, and there's a lot more spices and, let's see. Yeah, this is my tempeh. It's fennel vegetable and it's tempeh. Everything's cruciferous. That's a khichdi. I think oh, it's an heirloom tomato summer chutney. That's one of my meals that I posted with Pipali in the summer. Um, and this is all Atul's cooking. You can see he's a really good cook. This is his cranberry chutney. I'll just share with you so you guys can, if you want to. There it is. All right. Oh, perfect. Morgan, I also follow Sapna, so I'll see you at Sapna's there. Yeah, trading recipes. If you guys have any recipes or anything, just share with me, and that'd be fantastic.